We go now to the latest legal round in the war against drugs. Judy Woodruff has the details. Judy?
Last night, the government of Colombia sent the man believed to be one of the financial wizards behind the Medellin drug cartel to face criminal charges in the U.S. It is the first extradition since the current drug war violence broke out in Colombia. The accused is Eduardo Martinez Romero, an economist by training. Martinez is suspected of laundering up to $1.2 billion in cocaine profits. The money laundering scheme was uncovered in a federal investigation codenamed Operation Polar Cap. For more on that and the Martinez case, we talked to U.S. Attorney Robert Barr, Jr., whose Atlanta office is prosecuting the case against Martinez. Mr. Barr joins us from public station WPBA in Atlanta. First of all, Mr. Barr, what exactly is Operation Polar Cap all about?
Operation Polar Cap is about the money laundering business whereby the drug cartel pulls together vast amounts of cash from the drug transactions on the streets and in the communities of America and siphons it through the money laundering pipeline abroad in a hidden manner to avoid detection by the United States government through banking and business channels around the world back into their pockets. Operation Polar Cap was a multi-agency, multi-district undercover operation that struck a blow at the heart of that money laundering operation by the cartel.
Now, how did Operation Polar Cap lead to Mr. Martinez?
I wouldn't want to get into the specifics of it since we are now engaged in active litigation with Mr. Martinez. He has appeared before a federal magistrate. The legal proceedings have begun. We have to be very careful about what we might say.
Well, let me ask you this. Why was it that the Atlanta office, the Northern District of Georgia U.S. Attorney's Office, involved?
The major agency that led to the Atlanta indictments, although this was a multi-agency operation, was the Drug Enforcement Administration of the DEA. The way we were able to work our way into the money laundering apparatus and gain entree to the cartel itself was through an undercover operation. The undercover agents operated through the Atlanta office, hence the Atlanta connection, which was at the core of the money laundering undercover operation.
What can you tell us about that Atlanta connection?
The Atlanta connection, the undercover operation itself went on for approximately 2.5 to 3 years. It involved very sophisticated, very important, and very, very dangerous undercover meetings, both here and overseas, by DEA undercover agents with other individuals. The DEA agents placed their lives in danger through this operation, but we were able to gather extensive, voluminous data, the analysis of which is still continuing and which has already resulted in the indictments here in Atlanta, naming Mr. Martinez and others, and indictments by other investigations spawned through that undercover operation in other federal judicial districts.
Can you tell us anything, Mr. Barr, about how it was, though, that you were able to link what happened to Mr. Martinez, who, after all, was arrested down in Colombia?
To the undercover operation?
That's right. I mean, or to Operation Polar Cap, to the entire investigation.
Through the use of the undercover agents and the intelligence and evidence that we were gathering, there were a large number of contacts made with various individuals at various levels in the so-called cartel organization. A number of these individuals had dealings with banks and other financial institutions that were used to launder the money, to get the money through front organizations and front companies out of the United States of America, through banking channels abroad, through banks in Panama, and eventually into Colombia. The evidence, which I cannot characterize at this point, again, since we're involved in litigation in court, led to the specific allegations in the indictment against Mr. Martinez. He is charged in the indictment in 2 counts with aiding and abetting other alleged cartel members in money laundering, and also with aiding and abetting and conspiring to evade various other United States laws relating to IRS and tax laws and the trafficking in drugs.
Well, even though you can't talk about the specifics of this case, can you tell us in general why the cartel would be attracted to Atlanta banks, that part of the country?
The cartel would be attracted to any area in which there is significant banking activity in which there is ease of an ability to move large amounts of cash throughout the world, where there are international banks and banks with offices abroad. They look to an area where there is a significant amount of commercial activity through which they can hide the money, and in which significant amounts of money moving in that stream of international commerce would not be highlighted because they would basically blend in with a large number of other transactions.
How sophisticated an operation are we talking about here?
Well, simply look at the fact of the indictment itself. This indictment here in Atlanta, which is only one of several indictments, names 12 individuals and organizations. It has a voluminous document detailing extensive meetings, organizations that were set up, transactions that took place over a long period of time, and yet you have to realize that as voluminous and as expansive and as complex as that indictment is, you have to believe that we have uncovered only one of probably many such similar pipelines available to the cartel.
So you're saying it's a very elaborate, sophisticated, or a series of very elaborate, sophisticated schemes we're talking about here. Well, what does that say then about the ability of law enforcement officials in this country to root out the money laundering that exists all over the country?
The importance of the Polar Cap investigation, I don't think, can be overestimated. It is the single most important indictment yet, at least here in Atlanta, and the national scope, I believe, is the most important blow that we have yet struck, and it clearly illustrates the ability of the United States government, of law enforcement in this country, to take the statutes that Congress has passed allowing us to uncover the money laundering trail, together with the undercover evidence that we uncovered and showed the ability that we have to uncover in this case, to bring those together for the first time and successfully now prosecute individuals and organizations who engage in money laundering. We have already had one international bank, the Banco de Occidente Panama, enter a guilty plea to money laundering as a result of the Polar Cap indictment.
But as you point out, there's been only one major indictment, or one major case here, and then this most recent extradition. Why is it so difficult to get enough evidence in these cases to bring these people to justice?
The alleged cartel itself deals in various mechanisms, of course, to secret its activities and to secret the money. The amounts of money that the drug cartel has available to it make it very easy to acquire the services of very sophisticated bankers, very sophisticated business people, very sophisticated lawyers, very sophisticated real estate people, not only here in the United States but anywhere in the world. When you couple the ability to do that with the military power and the propensity for violence that that organization has shown, they're able to maintain a very high degree of secrecy to all aspects of their activity. That's why it's so difficult to break into it. But we have illustrated through the Polar Cap investigation that the United States law enforcement now has the capability to do that.
But to what extent do the banks that these cartels are using have to be cooperative in all of this?
Obviously, somewhere along the line there has to be witting cooperation by people in banks. The indictment in Atlanta, 2 of the 12 people and organizations that were indicted were banks themselves. We indicted 2 banks. There are officials who are with those banks who are also under indictment here in Atlanta. Clearly, somewhere along the line in all of this, there has to be cooperation by individuals in the institutions themselves.
And just quickly, Mr. Barr, what do you, someone who's in law enforcement and as a prosecutor, what do you need, and other prosecutors like you, what do you need in order to root this problem out? What more do you need, and how much of it was addressed, do you think, in what President Bush talked about in his address to the nation on Tuesday night?
I think the President's address set the moral tone and the national commitment that we are now seeing in practice in recent days, as recently as today, reflected in legal and law enforcement activities around the country, to form a firm foundation to win this war. We have the statutes, which we have used very effectively in this polar cap investigation. We were able to uncover sufficient evidence in that case for this indictment. What we need are additional resources for the investigative agencies and for prosecutors to put together more of these very such cases.
Is resources money?
Money and people.
All right. Well, Robert Barr, U.S. Attorney in Atlanta, we appreciate your being with us.
Thank you.